What's going on, everybody? You got us on a live reaction show here because there's some big breaking news that has happened earlier today towards the latter half of the afternoon here. There was a note that it was a rumor that the Bears had a plan in place. I think within like 30 minutes, Tad, I think we got the news that the trade was actually in place. And yeah, in case you're catching us right now, in case you don't know us, I mean, I'm one half of this Desai Guys, Mr. On the side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of Desai Guys, Mr. Tad Desai. And Tad, I mean, let's just break it to it. I mean, the Chicago Bears have traded the number 1 overall pick in this year's draft to the Carolina Panthers. And I mean, we'll get into the reaction of the actual trade because I mean, yeah, it's interesting to say the least, but this is the haul that the Bears have gotten for their trade of the number 1 overall pick. They have gotten the 2023 9th and 61st overall picks. They get a 2024 first round pick, a 2025 second round pick, and I think a big one in this one, DJ Moore is leaving the Carolina Panthers to become a member of the Chicago Bears now, and all the Carolina Panthers got in return, is just that first overall pick. So I mean, it's interesting because we talked about the owner for the Carolina Panthers, David Tepper. He wanted to be a little bit more aggressive. So we thought Frank Reich would possibly pull a move to jump up, maybe not all the way to 1, but maybe as how the draft played out, maybe they jump up into the top 5 from their number 9 spot. But here we are. They jump up 8 spots to swap with the Chicago Bears, give up a lot to do that.
Top 5 from their
and I think it's just, safe to say that it's going to be a quarterback at number 1. I don't think you make this move unless you're going to go quarterback, right, Ted?
How great would that be if they just went full disastrous mode and then took Jalen Carter and everyone was just what is happening? Yeah, as far as I went Jalen Carter, not Will Anderson. That would be totally anarchy.
Yeah, it's just so interesting for sure if they did that.
Yeah, no, this was fascinating for a couple of reasons. Well, first off, I hate this trade on several personal levels. First off, I'm a teacher. I just gotten off work. I was just getting ready to enjoy my spring break, and this happens. And I'm like, of course, I need to dive back into it. But I love it. Just for this is why draft season is so great. It's just the craziness of everything because the Carolina Panthers were the underdogs. Everybody was talking. Will it be the Texans? Will it be the Colts? Will maybe even be the Raiders? Very few people. Sure, the Panthers were in the conversation, but I feel like very few people actually thought the Panthers will pull the trigger. And I think that this is why they gave up such a massive hole because they knew that they were the underdogs for this. So it's interesting to say the least. We'll get more into their, draft, load going into the future and what that means for the Bears now. But overall, I don't hate it for either team. I hate it for the Panthers because I don't like Frank Reich, and even I've been saying this joke to everyone who's been texting me all day. He is no longer the Colts head coach. He is still somehow screwing the Indianapolis Colts from the beyond, and it is super annoying. So I think this was a good trade for both teams, and I think that it's an interesting move by the Panthers. Clearly they love someone. It's a question of who do they love.
Yeah, I think that's the big one because obviously, we heard about Anthony Richardson having just an amazing showing at the combine. He's probably going to have a really good showing at his pro day as well. CJ Stroud, there's a lot of people talking about how well he did. I really doubt he's in the picture, but I mean, Will Levis had a pretty good showing at the combine too. So it's like, that would be a very interesting move too. But yeah, obviously you got the de facto number 1 in some people's books of Bryce Young. But obviously you look at, the size and the durability. So it's like, do you want to make that investment? Number 1 overall pick. So it's like, I'm wondering if they make that move for him. But it's like, yeah, I think there's a lot of all these quarterbacks are in play. Like I said, it's safe to say that they are going to go quarterback, but just who it's going to be, that's going to be the new $1 million question as we sort of head into the process here, getting closer to draft day, obviously, as the pro days roll around and just, seeing who they're interested in. But yeah, I mean, it's not so shocking. Obviously it's shocking that the trade happened, but most people sort of speculated that the Bears were going to trade out of this spot. So I mean, it's just like inevitable. They get a pretty good haul in return. They get a really good player in return as well, and DJ Moore to help Justin Fields on the outside. So I mean, it's like I could see why the Bears did this move, and understanding as to why they didn't stay at number 1. So it's not that shocking, but just to happen so soon, I think that's a little bit shocking. I think.
I'm glad you brought up the timing of the trade, because I think this was actually a very smart move by the Bears, was because they knew that free agency is going to go down in about 72 to 96 hours. And so I think they knew the landscape was going to change drastically depending on what happens over those first couple days of free agency. And so they knew this is probably the highest selling point of the first overall pick. The Panthers, make a couple moves and all of a sudden they're starting to feel good about their roster. No, you go for that haul right now. So I think this was actually really, really smart by them of kind of the price is set here. And now you get the Colts and the Texans kind of scrambling, and you kind of put the rest of the AFC in kind of scramble mode. So I think that this was a really, really good move by the Bears to do, to sell as high as possible, because they knew that, who knows what's going to go down next week. We still have Lamar Jackson. We still have Aaron Rodgers flying out to New York and meeting with, all these New York.
Well, actually, Dad, it's vice versa. There was members of the Jets that flew out to California to meet with Aaron Rodgers.
Apparently, though, Rodgers is in New York as well, though.
Okay, well, I guess the opposite has happened too. I guess I missed that part, but just yeah. So it seems like a deal is close to being done. Hate to quit pivot here in case you're here for a reaction on the Chicago Bears news, but just I think there's also the report of the interview done by Mark Murphy, the GM of the or not the GM, but president of the Packers or whatever, where he was sort of speculating in a past tense that's oh yeah, Brett didn't finish his career with one team and Aaron's not going to finish his career with one team too. So it's pretty much it was signified that's yeah, the Packers have moved on. They're going in a different direction. So it's I think just figuring out the compensation and the restructuring of the contract and all that stuff too. But yeah, in case you're just tuning in, we're just going to throw up the banner here. We're discussing the trade between the Chicago Bears and the Carolina Panthers. The number 1 overall pick is no longer in Chicago. It is in Carolina. So, Tad, I kind of want to dive into the specifics for both teams now, because I want to see just how does this play out for both teams? I know you said it was sort of a good move for both teams, but I kind of want to dive into that a little bit further. So let's start with the Bears here. So we kind of already talked about it. They trade the number 1 overall pick. They had dropped only 8 spots to the number 9 spot with Carolina. They get the 61st pick as well. They get a first rounder in next year's draft, 2024, the second round pick in 2025. And of course, the big one, they get DJ Moore to help supplement a pretty, I would say average at best. To put it nicely, receiving core in Chicago. They got that late season trade of Chase Claypool for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, Darnell Mooney had a great, season 2 years ago, but last season, oh my gosh, he was not the same guy. So hopefully with a little bit more star power at that position group now, maybe that'll supplement everybody's stock and everybody can perform a little bit better. Here's an interesting, Ted. I want to get your thoughts on this. So obviously there's all this news about, and here comes Cap. He needs to give his reaction here for this trade, and he wants to hear my thought here is just that. And he's out. Yeah, it's so quick. But here, like I said, I want to get your thoughts on this here, Tad. So obviously, as the combine was going on, we hear the news about Jalen Carter about being involved in that car crash that unfortunately led to the death of a player and I think it was a coaching personnel, if I remember correctly, with Georgia.
Scouting personnel. It was team personnel.
Team personnel for the Georgia football team. And it was sort of we're hearing differing stories where he said, I wasn't there. Then he said, I was pretty far away. Then he said he was close to the incident. And so just all that led to the cops getting involved and he got arrested and he posted bail, if I remember correctly. But just it led to off the field concerns about Jalen Carter, who a lot of people thought could have been the number 1 overall pick. And I wonder, Tad, do you think Chicago was possibly interested in keeping this pick because they were interested in Jalen Carter, and then this news surfaces that they started to ramp up, possibly trying to deal away this number 1 overall pick because they don't want to deal with that off the field concerns? And it's I know Will Anderson's a really good pick at number 1 as well, but just maybe they had their heart set on Jalen Carter, and then all this news sort of led them to you know what, let's deal it away and let's sort of get a haul for it. But just I want to get your thoughts on that real fast.
So I think it could go one of either 2 ways. Yes, that's entirely possible that they were in love with Jalen Carter. In our top 10 mock draft that we dropped about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago, yeah.
I had them taking Jalen Carter because I really do believe that guy is a big-time difference maker as a player. So that's absolutely in the cards of possibilities. But what I actually believe is the bigger play was how much that increased Will Anderson's stock. Was that we cannot trade past 3 now. Like, if we trade past 3, Will Anderson will be gone. And I know there were reports that the Cardinals were, thinking of trading away the 3rd pick. I think that's the typical draft offseason banter of like, we are going to plant this story so other teams freak out. And who knows, maybe that was the seed, because that story dropped about 3 or 4 days ago. And now this happened. So maybe that was the seed where, the Bears kind of decided to make this move. But I think it's one of those things where the Bears were like, we're not in love with Will Anderson, so let's just go for the highest price now. Compared to maybe we do sit there for Jalen Carter. But there's without a doubt, or I should rephrase that, there is zero doubt that the Jalen Carter thing did not affect the Bears draft plans, because I promise you there were talks in that building of maybe we stay put and maybe we take Jalen Carter, or maybe we take Will Anderson, because that affected things. I really do think, I believe, and of course I'm biased here, but I really do think that the Colts-Bears trade, like, that worked out so perfectly for both teams. They could still get Jalen Carter at 4, and they could still and the Colts get their quarterback at 1, that I think the Jalen Carter thing completely blew that up.
Oh, yeah.
So there's zero doubt that the Jalen Carter situation absolutely factored into this decision. How? I mean, maybe we'll get a tell-all article. I'm sure we will in a couple of years.
Oh, yeah.
But
I don't even think a couple of years. I don't doubt it that as we start to hear more about Jalen Carter's situation, because that's a big deal. Obviously, I'm pretty sure that's affecting all other teams. Yeah, it's like we still don't have full idea as far as what's going to happen with him. And I bet you he was at the top of most teams' draft boards for sure. So that affects all of their draft strategies too. So I'm pretty sure, I'm hearing a rumor that possibly he still could go in the top 10 because of the talent that he has. It's just waiting to see exactly how this will all play out with the cops and his arrest and his, changing of the story. And like, was he there? Was he not there? All that stuff, right? So it's like, we'll wait and see. But yeah, I don't doubt that maybe something will happen within a couple of weeks. We'll hear an article or something like that to detail what's going on with him.
The Jalen Carter thing is Laramie Tunsil, but just 2 months out. Like Laramie Tunsil, like that whole thing happened the night of. Yep. Now we're seeing the Laramie Tunsil situation play out, and like it's so much more fascinating too, because I'm sure if Tunsil was given the opportunities to do interviews between picks with teams, maybe he would have played up his value a little bit. But it's a very similar situation where it's so bizarre and so weird that it's just like, I'm not sure how this is going to end for Jalen Carter. I could see him going in the second round now, weirdly enough, and I could see him going still in the top 10. Yeah. But there's zero, to answer your original question, there's zero doubt that Jalen Carter absolutely factored into what happened today.
Yeah. 100%. I feel the same exact way. That's like, they're probably deciding between him and Will Anderson out of Alabama.
Or
and this trade. And then the trade, obviously, but then this sort of surfaced that sort of like, do we really love Will Anderson, or should we try and explore the whole Hall aspect? And it seems like they got a pretty good one from Carolina. And sort of transitioning to Carolina, they sent over DJ Moore. And I mean, Tad, we talked about this all season long. Like, obviously, we cover fantasy football for LAFB Network here. We're talking about that Justin Fields was never given enough weapons. And so what did he do? He put the team on his shoulders and became a running quarterback and became an instant sensation towards the second half of the season. Now you wonder, with the addition of DJ Moore, and we talked about, they already acquired Chase Claypool at the deadline last season, and they already had Darnell Mooney on the roster. Cole Kmet had a really good season last year too. So it's like, do you think they stick with like that sort of run first aspect with Justin Fields where he's sort of got to do it all himself? But I'd like to think now with this acquisition of DJ Moore, a proven receiver in the NFL, a proven star receiver on top of that, because it's like Chase Claypool had that flash in the pan rookie season, but since then he's been, I don't know, kind of a dud at best. Darnell Mooney, kind of the same thing. So hopefully it's like all these guys can come together to build a really good receiving group for Chicago and to pair up obviously with Justin Fields to really make this offense so much better. Because on defense, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with them. Matt Eberflus is a great coordinator. I think he's got some good plans for the defense, but just the offense is what worries me. And Tad, the crazy thing too is that with all this trade news, they still have the most money in free agency as far as cap space is concerned. So they still have a lot of room to make some changes to their roster, both on the offense, on the defense. We talked about their offensive line needing some help, so they could definitely go out there and upgrade the offensive line, because we mentioned this before on our podcast that the offensive line class in this year's draft is not so strong. But with that move to 9, which we'll get to a little bit later here, it's just like maybe they'll entertain one of those top-level offensive linemen at that number 9 pick now, possibly, though. But yeah, I mean, honestly, Tad, like, with the acquisition of that first round pick,
I apologize.
with the acquisition of DJ Moore, that's going to help their offense this year, with the acquisition of next year's first round pick, because we'll get to this with the Panthers take here, but just I don't expect the Panthers to be all that strong this year, this coming season. So honestly, their first round pick could possibly be in the top 10, maybe even the top 5. And what could the Bears do? Not only add to their roster, maybe they do a similar trade like this year where they trade back, get a haul again, and just continue to build their roster that way. So I mean, just like, what do you think about the compensation and just like different ways the Bears can sort of go now? Because I mean, kind of the world is their oyster. They have a lot of different directions they can go to rebuild this franchise pretty quickly.
This is why, you know what, let's just get to the meat and bones of it. Draft grades or trade grades. Panthers, I get like a B plus. I get why you did it. You gave up a lot, but hey, if there's a guy you like, go for it. I appreciate the finacity to do that. And for the Bears, it's an absolute A plus. Like this was, of course, the Bears took this trade. This is such a great trade because not only do you trade back to 9, where you said, like you said, and we'll get into this later, you can pursue a number of players. But on top of that, you get DJ Moore, a guy who you look at his stats and casual football fans are going to go, well, he only had 777 yards or something like that last year. This dude played with 3 different quarterbacks last year, and he succeeded with almost every single one. He is a legit number 1 threat, and you look at the trend that has been going on in the NFL. You get Jalen Hurts, a developing quarterback, a wide receiver in A.J. Brown. You get Tua Tunga. I went for it, and it failed. You get Tua, Tyreek Hill, and we all saw how well that worked out. You get your young developing quarterbacks, a good receiver, it tends to pay off. Now, I'm not saying DJ Moore is on the level of those guys, but as you said, he is better than anyone else out there. And the big thing too is people are forgetting DJ Moore was on the trade block because the Panthers were trying to sell everyone. They were trying to sell Brian Burns. They were trying to sell DJ Moore. They were trying to sell McCaffrey. It turns out McCaffrey was the only one they could sell. Big reason why DJ Moore didn't get moved was because he has a cap hit of $20 million next year and $21 million in 2025. So what teams can take that on? Exactly like what you said. The Bears, they're like, we got all the money in the world, baby. We'll just we'll spend it all. And that's why it's such a perfect fit because like the Panthers want to get that off their books. The Bears have room on their books for that. And so it's brilliant. And I love what you said too about, that's probably going to be a top 10 pick. Let's assume they take Bryce Young. No matter how good Bryce Young is, the Panthers roster will not be good enough to truly compete. So will they be first overall? Probably not. But I mean, imagine that for a Bears fan. Imagine if you get the first overall pick from the Panthers. Like, my God, that would just be like an absolute jackpot. And then you get a second round pick 2 years from now. And I don't care if the Panthers are in the Super Bowl. It's still a second round pick. That's hugely valuable. Like, it is an absolute dynamite of a pick. And especially because they still are in the top 10. And this is, like you said, while the offensive line class is not that deep, and in the top 15, it's still pretty good. It's when you get in the middle rounds where you're like, okay, it's all right. But in the first round, there's still a lot of talent there. So you could go offensive line. You can go secondary. I don't think they'll go linebacker. But the areas of more immediate need are very, very interesting for Chicago. Chicago, honestly, may be the most interesting team in the top 10 now. I would love to see where they go at number 9.
No, like I said, there's a lot of different directions they could go. They still have a lot of cap space with free agency right around the corner, so they could spend there to really figure out what their draft plans would be. But yeah, at 9, I mean, there's a lot of great prospects that they could go there. Like I said, offensive line, I mean, Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern could be there. Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State could be there. If you want to go to the defensive line, if you want some edge rushers, Miles Murphy out of Clemson could possibly be there. Nolan Smith out of Georgia, maybe he's going to go into the top 10 based on how good a pro day he is, right? So it's like he's a possibility there. Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech could be available there. Maybe they shore up the secondary. They go corner. Maybe they go Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon. Maybe they go Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois. Like, I mean, there's a lot of great options that they can have there at that number 9 pick. It's really, like you said, going to be very interesting how they play all that out through the draft and obviously after free agency as far as how they decide to shore up their roster through free agency. So, I mean, there's a lot of interesting things there for sure right there. So
real quick, not to interrupt you, but I'm going to interrupt you.
Of course.
We have a couple of YouTube comments from Charlie Hour. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Charlie
Okay.
Hour. Why do you think the Colts didn't want to trade up? Why didn't they beat the offer? Why don't they make you happy? Well, let me answer a couple things. Why did they beat the offer? Because they don't have enough to beat the offer. They don't like Michael Pittman would not have been enough to beat that offer. Sorry, Cap's kind of coughing in the back.
That's like, what is going on in your background right now?
Yeah, he's a little too fast. But why did the Colts not beat the offer? That's because that they didn't have enough to beat the offer. They don't have a DJ Moore. They don't have short of offering up Jonathan Taylor, which would be a terrible idea. They're not going to be everything that the Panthers offered up. And I think they could have done that in draft picks. I think that's why the DJ Moore thing, that was the interesting thing. I think DJ Moore was the kicker in this trade. That I think they were 100%. Getting a lot of draft capital in a very similar fashion, but it was the player. The Bears wanted that immediate impact player. And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with the A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill comparisons is like, we need somebody that's going to make Justin Fields look better, or not even look better, but just flat out play better right now. Yeah. Colts don't have a guy like that. Why don't they make me happy? Because they're idiots. And Chris Ballard is the answer. So are the Colts still a player? Yes, but I think they're going to end up taking Anthony Richardson. I think that they kind of want this new coaching staff wants Jalen Hurts 2.0, and he's the closest thing to that. So I think, yes, if you ask me my biggest loser from tonight, I honestly do think it's Indianapolis.
Yeah, that's unfortunate because, being at 4, they had a good chance to sort of trade up to 1 to get their quarterback of the future if they really wanted to. Charlie's saying your cat is dead. But I don't know.
He's good. I can turn around. He's okay now.
Okay, good. But yeah, that's interesting. Let's sort of transition to the Panthers side of this whole trade because, there's a lot of talk that, maybe they didn't get the best part of this trade. They sort of got trending on Twitter right now is fleeced in all capitals. And it's pretty much all the talk about this trade specifically that, did the Panthers give up too much to go to number 1? Did the Bears really just come away clear, flat out winners in this trade sort of thing? So it's like, look at it how you want. But like you said, it's like, if you want to make that move to get your franchise quarterback, you sort of need to maybe over deliver at times. And especially like when demand is so high, like I said, Colts possibly could have been in it. Maybe, the Las Vegas Raiders could have been in it possibly. Houston Texans, like you said, could have been in it to get to number 1. So, the offer's there. You kind of need to go for it. But, it's going to be interesting. I think like we already talked about, we don't know which direction they're going to go with quarterback, whether they go with the great combine performance like Anthony Richardson and all the potential that he has. Maybe they go with the sort of proven quarterback and Bryce Young, but then you have to deal with the slight frame and whether he'll be able to be durable. You go with CJ Stroud, who looks like a good combination of the two, but got to still see how all that plays out. So it's like, there's a lot of options out there for where they're going to go at quarterback. But like you talked about, it's like, God, I don't know who they have now to support him, though, because it's like DJ Moore is gone. Like you talked about, Christian McCaffrey was dealt last year. Robbie Anderson was dealt last year. So it's
they don't have Thomas. He's going to be fine.
They have Ian Thomas at tight end and Tommy Trumbull, I know you're a fan of. They do have Chuba Hubbard, who we're both a fan of. But it's just like outside of that, it's like you look at the starting receivers now, Tad. You got Terrace Marshall Jr., who they have who's got potential, but still not proven.
No, that was a bust of a pick. That's okay.
Say what you want, but it's just like maybe there's a chance for him to step up, but just it's not looking so strong there. You got Laviska Shenault, who a lot of people had promise on, but just he hasn't really lived up to his hype either. So I mean, we're gonna see about that. Then they got Shai Smith out of South Carolina. So I mean, it's like another slot receiver. So it's like they got potential, but just nothing proven that they had before, like they had with DJ Moore and obviously Christian McCaffrey when he's on the team. So now you're going from a sort of like average offense to something pretty much below average. Now, the one thing I will say is they did keep their starting offensive line intact and they were able to run the ball pretty well towards the end of the season. So maybe that's a direction that they go. Maybe they bring back Deontay Foreman to sort of help shore up their running back game. Maybe they bring in a free agent. There's a lot of great free agent running backs out there with Miles Sanders, Kareem Hunt. Maybe they entertain the thought of Alexander Madison. I'm hearing Dalvin Cook's possibly on the trade block. So it's like, maybe they entertain something like that, but like they'll have to go through the running back route if they want to sort of do anything on offense, because this passing offense, I mean, the quarterback just really has to hit the ground running, and all these quarterbacks like are good, but I don't think there's anybody that like instantly wows me that's like, you started week 1, he's going to be a huge difference maker. I think you're going to see growing pains with any quarterback that you put in there day 1 to start for the Carolina Panthers. And Tad, really quick before I pass it over to you, man, the unfortunate loser in all this, quarterback Matt Corral. Like, I mean, we thought after he was being drafted last year.
Is that ever a real possibility?
I know, but just pretty much this says that's like the Panthers don't believe that Matt Corral could be their franchise quarterback. Now, obviously, he got hurt last year, didn't get to play any of the regular season. I think he got hurt in the preseason or maybe even training camp. I can't remember, but it's just like barely got a chance to show what he has, but looks like maybe he just couldn't, understand the system maybe, or just whatever it was. But just like clearly the Panthers are moving on and Matt Corral's the unfortunate loser here. So he's not going to get a chance there, but yeah, this is going to be big because this is a franchise-altering type of move, and it really puts a lot of pressure on head coach Frank Reich because, I mean, when he was in Philadelphia as offensive coordinator, he's the one who sort of helped Carson Wentz become obviously he got hurt, but a potential MVP that season. So it's like that helped that team obviously win a Super Bowl. So it's like now the hope here is that they trade for a franchise-altering move in a quarterback year, but most likely, obviously it's not definite that they're going to go quarterback, but most likely it's going to be a quarterback. And just whether Frank Reich can groom him to be that type of, future star in the NFL. So Tad, I'll pass to you here, but just like, yeah, what do you think about just the Colts situation now? Sorry, not the Colts. Well, the Colts situation you already discussed. The Panthers situation, I should say. Excuse me.
Well, first things first, yes, Matt Corral is the biggest loser, I guess, but like no one ever thought that was going to be a legitimate, opportunity or a legitimate option for the Panthers at quarterback. I'll tell you the biggest winner it's Frank Reich, because now finally for the first time in 5 years, he has a quarterback that's below the age of 35.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
like,
fair.
My God, that took him long enough. And now, of course, he does it for another fucking team, but whatever, we'll move on. With the Panthers situation, yes, I think that they did give up a lot. Obviously, that's a no shit Sherlock situation, but
bit of an understatement for sure.
I understand it, especially now. I don't quite understand if they go for CJ Stroud, and this is just personal bias coming into play here because I think Stroud looks good. I think he has plenty of developmental promise, but he's not quite the top prospect that I would give up this haul to go for. Bryce Young has those flashes where I understand if you fall in love with him at that point and you want to give up all this, then absolutely that can happen. So I think that, he being Bryce Young, he is worth this. And so, yes, you will have a rough year or two. And as long as you don't, David Carr him, but like you said, they have a pretty good offensive line. So I don't think they will. You can start to develop. It's kind of like what the Bears are doing with Justin Fields. Justin Fields' rookie year was pretty sketchy. Justin Fields comes in, and now all of a sudden he's starting to look like the future of the franchise. And I think that is kind of what they're trying to do with Bryce Young, supposedly, and bring him into a bad roster. Look, your rookie year is going to suck. Stick it out with us. We're going to try to do everything. And that's why I honestly do believe that's why now reports are coming out that they are thinking about trading down. Because if they
there were those reports. Literally, I think it was like within 30 minutes to an hour after the trade was sort of finalized, there was talk that, the Carolina Panthers may be interested to redeal the number 1 overall pick, depending on the suitors. Apparently, they have interest in multiple quarterbacks. They're fine with taking some leftovers, depending on if somebody else wants the number 1 overall pick. I don't think it's going to work out that way. I think I'm pretty much going to stay at number 1, but it doesn't hurt to shop it for sure.
I think that's kind of their approach, though, is like they recognize, and that's the important thing. They're not doing the Houston Texans thing of like, we're going to build. It's like, no. Okay. Like, we just gave up a lot. We need to like get some of our assets back. Like, they seem to be going about this in a smart enough way where I have faith. Like, look, next year's going to be a disaster for them. Like, it will. No ifs, ands, or buts. But I think they're going about it in a way that this like rebuild will not be a couple year process. I think in 2 or 3 years, the Panther, as long as whoever they take next month pans out, the Panthers could be a very, very good team for the foreseeable future. So that's why, again, they gave up a lot. They took a massive risk here because if this player does not turn out, this is going to be one of the worst trades in NFL draft history. But if it does work out, they're going to look like geniuses because they didn't give up too much future capital. That's the key part. They gave up a lot of immediate capital. where they kept enough future capital where they can build through it if they draft well. So
and it's also high level capital too, right? So I mean, it's like, yes, it sucks that you're losing first round picks,
stuff.
But yeah, exactly. You could build a solid roster through those day 2 and day 3 picks as well. And obviously, depending on how your free agency situation works out, they could obviously build through free agency too. So yeah, immediate and then also high level, which sucks a little bit, but they still have a lot of their middle picks that they could build around for sure.
Also, just want to confirm, Cap's okay. He just settled down over here, so he's still kicking. We're good.
No, that's fair. That's fair. And there's your buddy Kevin McCormick asking about Matt Corral last year. It's just like I said, I think it's just unfortunate that he got hurt. I'm not saying that he was going to be a franchise altering type of quarterback, but I think just the biggest thing is just I don't feel like he got a fair chance. Like he got hurt, unfortunately, and then now they're making this move. So clearly, like they're gonna say like, oh, Matt Corral's in the competition, but no, whoever's drafted this year at number 1, he is the starter. Like there's no reason why he wouldn't be the starter, right? So it's just like a little unfair for him, but yeah, we'll see what happens with Matt Corral. He's got a long career ahead of him.
We even talked about it at the time, especially now that we've seen the season go back, is like had he not gotten, I believe he broke his ankle, right, in the preseason.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly what the injury was, but pretty much it was
some devastating leg injury that took him out for the season. Clearly, the way the Panthers season went down, he would have gotten a shot.
Oh yeah, easily. When you're dealing with the semblance of Sam Darnold, PJ Walker, and Baker Mayfield,
this is my XFL boy.
He didn't look all that great. Say what you want about it, but he didn't look all that great.
I can't defend that.
I 100% that if Matt Corral was healthy, or it's like if he wasn't healthy until like the latter part of the season, he easily would have gotten a starter too for sure, because they had to see what they have. Because then maybe they don't make this move if they saw a glimmer of something in Matt Corral in this offense, right? But just we'll see. We'll see what happens with Matt Corral. But just the Panthers, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with them and just how it all transpires.
So let me ask this then. Who do you think they're going for? CJ Stroud or Bryce Young? Let's have that debate. Let's get that out of the way.
For me, like I said, part of me thinks like Anthony Richardson's in the picture there.
No,
I don't think it's
not. No. Stop.
I think he is. I think he is.
Clickbait. Stop. No, we're not doing this. We are not doing this. Anthony Richardson is not going. He's played like 9 college games. No, stop with all of this. I know we're just coming off the combine. I know that he looks really good. He's really athletic. Yes, he is very impressive. Oh my God, he can throw the ball so far. I don't care. He should not go first overall. Yes, he has had 3 different coordinators. I am so sick of hearing all these excuses for Anthony Richardson. Can we stop with the Anthony Richardson talk? I am so sick of it. Sorry, keep going. My God, this guy.
See, for me, it's just like I think the recency bias of him having such an impressive combine, I think it just started that sort of wearing on teams. I bet you. So it's like I'm not saying for sure he's the pick. I'm just saying he is going to be part of the picture. But for me, I think it's going to be Bryce Young. I think, unfortunately, even though he didn't throw, which we talked about in one of our last episodes on the podcast, that that kind of hurt him a little bit. But I mean, I think he just has the skills. He looked good in that Alabama offense. Obviously, the pro day is going to make him look a lot better. He's going to throw there. So I think that's going to put aside any sort of worries that Carolina may have. But yeah, I think for me, it's going to be Bryce Young. I think he looks like, out of the prospects that I see, like I said, I think he's going to have the least growing pains. Like, I mean, the biggest thing that I worry about with Bryce Young is the durability. I'm not worried about the mechanics. I'm not worried about his leadership. I'm not worried about him doing well under pressure sort of thing. It's like all of that I'm sort of fine with. Is just that durability factor. And like I said, their offensive line is pretty good, and they didn't lose any starters, so nobody's going to be a free agent. Nobody's been traded or anything like that. So hopefully that offensive line attack could keep them alive for this rookie season. So for me, I think it's Bryce Young.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's Bryce Young as well. And I want to know, because again, there are things you have to keep in mind, especially when it comes to draft season, is when you see these news leaks, somebody planted that. Like 9 times out of 10, somebody planted that. So I want to know which camp is leaking these CJ Stroud to Carolina things, because it's who benefits the most. I feel like it's a smokescreen by Carolina, especially with these reports now that they want to trade back. So I think there's a mystery team that's in love with CJ Stroud. And honestly, and you know what? Reckless speculation time. I think the Raiders really like CJ Stroud. I think the Panthers are trying to goat the Raiders into a trade here.
That seems like a very strong possibility.
I have zero evidence to back it up, but we're going to.
Of course, you have no evidence. Trade literally happened today. I don't know how that's all sort of going to happen. But yes, definitely more speculation will be happening over the next couple of weeks, the next month for sure, as far as, if there's a team that's going to, bite the bullet or whatever and sort of trade up to number one with Carolina so they recoup some of their losses. Like, I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility. But for me, I think it's going to be hard for them to find a taker again for that number one overall pick, like even with some of these smoke screens and things like that. So I think most likely they're going to stay at number one. Now, if there's going to be trades after that, like, I mean, there's possibly going to be some trades to jump up into the top four or something like that. That's a possibility. I can see that happening. But I think at number one, I think we're set with Carolina there. But yeah, we will see. We will see for sure.
All right, let's talk about the Bears at number 9.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is super interesting because and we kind of already talked about this a little bit, but let's go a little bit more in depth. There's so many ways for them to go. Now, personally, here's what I think they should do, because this is why this is the perfect rebuild. What all do you need for a young, promising quarterback? You need a good receiver. DJ Moore, again, not quite on the level of Tyreek Hill or AJ Brown, but DJ Moore is a very good receiver.
It's dependable, solid receiver.
So great. You have a good pass catcher for him. You have a pretty dependable tight end in Cole Kmet now. You need some pass protection, right? And this is what I'm talking about. Is like that's why I love this trade so much for the Bears, is because number 9 is like the perfect opportunity. Because who else needs some pass protection, especially with Lane Johnson and other guys on that offensive line getting old and also getting expensive. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name, but if you look up the other tackle for the Eagles, his cap hit bounces up to $20+ million, I believe, next season. So he's probably going to be a cap casualty next offseason. So you trade down just in front of the Eagles so they don't take your guy if you like an offensive lineman. So if I'm the Bears, they're playing guys to take from. It's Paris Johnson out of Ohio State. It's Broderick Jones out of Georgia. That one would be a little bit of a surprise, but that dude's just such a freak athlete. I could see them liking his developmental techniques. But honestly, Skornowski out of Northwestern. That is a home run pick. Come on. I did it right. Don't tell me I did it wrong.
No, you did it.
Damn it.
It's Skoronsky, not Skronowski or whatever you said.
Whatever. The hometown guy out of Northwestern.
There you go.
From Chicago. And he is your cornerstone tackle. So you have now you have your rookie cornerstone tackle. You have your young quarterback, and now you have your veteran wide receiver. That is a great building block of an offense to go forward with. And especially, like you said, they still have all this money, so they can continue to build around him. And plus, I mean, how about this for a hot take? Derrick Henry still on the chopping block.
Interesting, but
I think hot take. They keep their own first round pick, but they trade the Panthers first round pick next year, along with a couple other assets for Derrick Henry. Ooh.
That's interesting move, but I like Khalil Herbert, and they obviously have their own free agent in David Montgomery. So I don't think
you like. I don't think Herbert more than
I understand that, but it's like I wouldn't trade a first round pick for Derrick Henry, because it's like
you would not. Whoa. Okay, we're getting into a separate debate here.
Yeah,
you would not trade a first round pick for Derrick Henry.
I understand the production's there, but now we're starting to see a little bit more cracks in the foundation with him. So it's like I'm starting to see some of the injuries. So it's like him being dependable all season long. I'm sort of a little bit worried about that, especially now if you trade for him, sort of thing. So that's what worries me, to give a first round pick up for him. That's the sort of thing that, like I said, I like Khalil Herbert. Maybe they decide to re-sign David Montgomery. They got a good 1-2 punch there. There's some good running backs that they could draft as well. So I don't think they make a big move again to get a guy like Derrick Henry. I think they'll be fine.
All right, so how about, real quick, where are some of your thoughts on what the Bears should do at 9?
No, 100%. I agree with everything that you said. It's like they got the receiver now. They got some other receivers, obviously, they can pair with them. They got the good tight end. Obviously, they're set at quarterback. Offensive line is like the biggest thing that they sort of need to address now. And there's a lot of talk that, a lot of people are projecting that 49ers right tackle Mike McGlinchey is a strong candidate to sign in Chicago. So it's like if they sign Mike McGlinchey, your right tackle set, but Skoronski could play the left tackle. He could play the guard position. A lot of people are saying with his arm length, I remember you mentioned this on our podcast, maybe you shift him inside and he plays one of the guard positions. You still need to upgrade everywhere practically. So, I mean, you'll still be able to use him. So it's a great pick. But yeah, I like Paris Johnson as well. I mean, he's a really good pick too. But offensive line, I think, would be my pick here at number 9. But depending on, if some of the other teams ahead of you, like your Atlanta, they want to secure their offensive line. We talked about this, where if the Raiders go the veteran quarterback move, they need to upgrade their offensive line. So maybe they'll go offensive line as well. So there may be a possibility that Skoronski and Paris Johnson will both be gone. So it's like, then do you reach for Broderick Jones then? Like you said, it's like the potential's there, but it's like, would you take him in the top 10?
I don't think
Yes,
that's much
no,
of a,
maybe
well,
so. I don't know.
because I don't think it's much of a reach there at 9, though. Because if they traded with the Colts at 4, for example, why did I do this to myself? If whatever, but if they took any offensive tackle at 4, that would have been a reach. But that's again why I like this trade so much for the Bears, because 9 is the perfect position where you can really take any position and be fine. And on top of this, let's get off the offensive line talk for a bit. They could take Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon. Like, they have so many needs everywhere that this is great area just to like see who falls to you. Tyree Wilson may still be there. Devin Witherspoon, the guy you like so much, he's still there. Sorry, my dad sent me a text saying, "Do you ever wear real clothes?" No, Dad, this is an emergency situation.
I love
it. There's so many possibilities there at number 9 that it's just, this is why I like it so much for the Bears, is because they can, address so many more of their needs. And how about this for a hot take? What if they take Jackson Smith Njigba? Just double down receiver. Just like open up that passing offense.
No, honestly, it's exactly like I said. I think they need to go BPA, best player available. So yeah, whether that's receiver, whether that's defensive line, whether that's offensive line, it's like there's so many positions they could go for that I think they should be fine to take the BPA, whoever's available there. So yeah, a lot of directions that they could go. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens as the next couple of weeks play out for both free agency. Like I said, that's around the corner. So that's going to be very interesting to see how these teams, both the Panthers, Panthers and Bears, Colts, every other team in the NFL, how they're going to address free agency for sure. But there's one thing that I want to close out here before we sort of end our live stream here. Let's give it a fantasy spin. I mean, I know we still got months away until the fantasy season, but I want to get your thoughts here about just how do you feel about DJ Moore now in Chicago? Does this up the stock for Justin Fields? Like, where were you sort of ranking him before? But I'll pass it to you here. But just like, how do you feel about the fantasy situations with both the Bears and the Panthers now?
In terms of Justin Fields, I think he's the most interesting player that's affected by this. He's, it's kind of like who's the player at the combine we were talking, Kylie Ringo, where we were like, his arrow didn't go up, his arrow didn't go down. It's like that middle bar.
Exactly.
So I think Justin Fields is that middle bar, but it's fine because that middle bar he was a back end top 10 quarterback for me, fantasy wise going forward. And the big reason is because I just need to see him develop more as a passer. I'm not saying he's a bad passer, but DJ Moore's a great receiver. Can you get the ball to him? That's my big question. So,
and I think, I just want to cut in real fast here, because that's the thing that worries me too, is that is he going to be the quarterback that we saw at the second half of the season where he was just a pure runner and he rushed for over 1,100 yards? Or now with the acquisition of DJ Moore, do they now try and make him more of a pass-first quarterback? And exactly like you said, It's like we need to see those skills then of like, can he get the ball to DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, Chase Claypool, Cole Kmet? It's like all these guys. So it's like that's going to affect his positioning as far as like whether they decide to treat him still as that, like, this is my offense, I'm going to do what I want, and he's going to be a running quarterback. Or are we going to see some of the things that we saw maybe more at Ohio State, where it's like he could run, but he tried to make more of his plays through the pocket. So
Justin Fields right now still basically the same where I had him. I don't know why my voice shot up like 3 octaves higher there, but DJ Moore is actually higher in my opinion, just because they are going to feed him the ball so much. It's a Tyreek Hill Dolphins situation where it's like they are just going to try. He's the biggest playmaker now. They're just going to try to give him the ball so often. I'm a little concerned about how much attention he may get, but I think DJ Moore is good enough to avoid that. So he finished last year as the 22nd highest receiver in half PPR leagues. Not bad, but again, you have to factor in that quarterback situation. So now that he finally has a stable quarterback situation, I actually like it. I'm not going to call him a sleeper, but I do think he's going to be one of those players that goes later than people think. So I like him a lot as a kind of like, let's call him a half sleeper receiver for DJ Moore.
Kind of like a dozer. Kind of like there, but you can jostle away.
It's 7:00. You kind of slept through your alarm, and this is not coming from personal experience from this morning at all.
I was about to say, it sounds like someone I know.
And you're just kind of like going back and forth. So I think he will not go as early as he should, but you should not like bank on him slipping. I don't think he'll be a slipper, but I think he should go earlier than he will. Panthers, just stay away from the Panthers. Don't touch them. It's that simple. Just don't touch anyone. They're this year's Houston Texans. Like, just stay away from them. Also, can we talk? You know what? No, we've been talking all night about like who's the biggest winner, who's the biggest loser. My God, two more winners and losers. Biggest loser, the Houston Texans. You know who my biggest winner is of tonight?
What do you got?
Lovie Smith. My God.
I've seen that on Twitter too.
This is the ultimate FU on the way out, like riding in the sunset, middle fingers like going up. Like this is Dr. Strangelove going down on the bomb. Like this is amazing. What he wanted, he knew they were going to fire him, and he absolutely screwed this franchise, and I love it.
Yeah, a lot of people on Twitter have been talking about that, how he left out of the building smiling, leaving the fact that it's like
as he should have with his Santa Claus beard. I love it.
But yeah, sort of just to reiterate some of the things that you already said, it's like I like Justin Fields for sure. It's like I think he finished within the top 10 because of the running ability, but if that running ability decreases because now he has a bevy of passing weapons, I wonder if that's going to, boost his stock as a quarterback, but then it's like as a runner, then you're sort of missing that sort of thing. So it's like maybe we see someone like, Russell Wilson in Seattle, where it's like he got some good rushing yards and some rushing touchdowns, but he is still more of a quarterback. And that's why he was consistently in the top 10, top 5 for sure. Finished number 1 overall as well 1 year. So it's like, I like Justin Fields too. Like I could be targeting him as like a backup option if I miss out on some of those top quarterbacks for sure. I think easily with the more stable quarterback situation, DJ Moore gets a boost in stock for sure. Like you said, he finished at 22 with that semblance that we already laid out before of PJ Walker, Sam Darnold, and Baker Mayfield.
And here's another important note is, sorry to interrupt, but the last 5 weeks of the the last 6 weeks of the season, 4 of them, he finished with 15 plus points.
There you go.
Like his production, he can produce with bad quarterbacks too. It's not just like he's this inconsistent guy. Like he eventually found out, like, okay, this is how I work. And if the Bears can just borrow from that, I mean, this could work, even if he is the only legitimate receiver there, which is a very real possibility.
He is the most proven receiver, but I think you got a good, like I said, different sets of receivers, right? Because you got Chase Claypool's more of like a deep threat. You got Darnell Mooney, who's got some speed, but he could run some better routes too. DJ Moore sort of like your all-around receiver, but he's got some speed to him too. So it's like, yes, DJ Moore is easily going to garner the most attention and an opposing defense is going to give, but I think some of those other guys are going to be able to leverage that, like I said, Darnell Mooney and Chase Claypool, where it's like, it's not always going to be, DJ Moore is going to be always covered up where he's not going to be a good fantasy asset. I think he's still going to be really good because we saw this with Allen Robinson in Chicago, where it's like he just got force fed the ball so much that he was pretty good. So I think the same thing, like you said, could happen to DJ Moore here. So yeah, I really like him. But yeah, I have a feeling some people are going to downgrade him just a little bit because of the passing situation, what sort of offense that we're going to see in Chicago. So yeah, some people may devalue him a little bit, but that's where you could benefit then 100% for sure.
That's a good point.
I agree with you that the Panthers sort of hold no fantasy relevancy whatsoever.
Maybe Chuba Hubbard for touchdown value.
But that's exactly what I was about to get to, because you said this is last year's, this is the Panthers this year are going to be last year's Houston Texans. Well, their rookie running back, Dameon Pierce, ended up being probably the best part of their offense, right? So it's like,
that's a great comparison.
So this could be a very similar situation with Chuba Hubbard could be an addition, or like I said, maybe they go in free agency, they bring in somebody. Like I said, Kareem Hunt's out there. Miles Sanders is out there. Alexander Madison is out there. There's some good running backs out there that you could bring in to supplement with Chuba Hubbard. And they've already talked about they want to re-sign Deontay Foreman. So maybe they bring back Foreman, who's a really good piece in that offense too. But it's like, I like the running game in this offense 100%. Like if you really needed it, go with the running game in Carolina, but I do not trust the rookie quarterback as much as I want to. I don't think he's going to have a good year, whoever it is. The passing situation with the receivers, just like I already listed them out. I don't really have much faith in them as like real life starters, but as fantasy starters, like no way, I'm not touching them. Tight ends, Ian Thomas, Tommy Trumbull, like, maybe, but I still don't trust them either. I will say, though, the Carolina defense, I really like defensive coordinator Ejiro Evo.
I'm not trying. Nope, you go for it. No, I'm not touching that.
Ajiro Evafor, I think his name is, from Denver, who had a really good season. Despite how bad Denver's offense was, their defense was actually pretty good. So I think he could have a really good benefit to that defense. They got a lot of young players there that could really benefit from his tutelage. So I like the Carolina defense, not so much that I'm taking them like in the top 10 or something like that as far as all defenses are concerned, but they could be a really good streaming option based on the schemes and the philosophy that he can implement with that young defense. But yeah, on offense, I'm only trusting the running game with Carolina. 100%.
I'm not even trusting that, but like if you have to go someone with Carolina,
that's like a bench stash. As a bench stash, I'd go with like a Chuba Hubbard or Deontay Foreman.
That's a good like third to last round pick. Like Chuba Hubbard's, that's a good spot for him. That I actually really like. But yeah, no, if you're trying to find like, oh, maybe this will be a flex spot guy for me, no.
Yeah. But like I said, if they do bring in a good free agent name, then that will definitely boost their stock for sure, I think. So they'd be some guy that I could probably target as like a top of the bench guy, maybe a flex guy, depending on who they sign, right? So that's going to be a huge victory. And speaking of who they sign, like we sort of mentioned this all episode long here, all live stream long, I should say specifically.
Well, it was supposed to be our episode tonight. But
we had a plan for an episode, but we decided to pivot here and give you guys our instant analysis for the trade. In case you're catching us at the tail end here of the live stream, the number one overall pick, originally hosted by the Chicago Bears, has now been traded to the Carolina Panthers. So the Bears dropped to number 9 now. Panthers at number 1. Most likely they're going to take a quarterback. But yeah, lots of great storylines that are going to spring off of this big move here for sure. Because like I said, with the possible signings, like free agency is right around the corner. Lots of deals are probably going to be put in place on Sunday, but then the deals will not be official until Tuesday. But just, free agency is going to be coming. We're going to be giving you a lot of great action. We're streaming right here on the LEFB network. They're going to be giving you a lot of great content as well when it deals with the Rams, the Chargers, maybe some USC prospects, especially with us covering draft content, and some UCLA prospects as well. So there's a lot of great content coming your way, both on the LEFB network and, of course, on our podcast on the Desai Guys Football Forum. Got a lot of great draft content coming your way. Free agency, we're going to give you our best instant reaction to that as well. And I mean, Tad, this was really great to talk about just everything that's happening with the Bears and the Panthers, and because we're the draft guys on LEFP Network, so 100% we had to cover this, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's not just draft stuff, but like we said, the free agency implications this now has is because now the Bears are like, okay, we need a defensive tackle. Okay, we need an edge rusher. So, I mean, no promises, but there's going to be a lot of breaking news next week, and I can almost promise you, almost being the key word, because I have spring break. Amir doesn't. We're going to see how that works. But, with breaking, free agency news dropping all week next week, I would be shocked if we didn't go live at least once. So be sure to keep tuning in, keep those alerts on. And I'm so excited for this is why the NFL offseason is so great. Everyone talks about the NBA offseason. Now, NFL offseason rules. This is great. Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Jet in like 48 hours. This is going to be amazing.
Yeah, and actually one piece of news that obviously got buried underneath all this big news about the Chicago Bears and the Carolina Panthers. What's that?
Marcus Golden getting cut?
I think I missed that one. But no, Robert Woods has signed with the Houston Texans on a 2-year deal. So he's gonna be playing in Houston. So that's gonna be interesting. So yeah, we'll give you a lot more news.
This is the worst day in Colts history. That's not true. That's obviously out.
So we'll be giving you a lot more news like that, obviously with free agency happening in just a handful of days here. And yeah, it'll affect draft strategies. It'll affect free agency. Lots of things are going to be coming your way. So we'll do our best to make sure keep you covered on everything going on with LEFB Network and, of course, us at the Desai Guys Football Podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe to all the podcasts associated with us and also LEFB Network. Follow us on all of our social media handles. You see them scrolling down below, and, of course, all the LEFB Network social media handles as well. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to interact with you and love to just, give us your thoughts on what you think about this trade and how this will affect both the Bears and the Panthers. We gave our reaction. We'd love to hear from you as well. But to everybody who tuned in, we appreciate you tuning in, and make sure you always stay tuned for more content from both us as well as LFB Network.
And thank you so much for watching, listening, and please, like I said, guys, we are going to be dropping some, instant reactions to everything happening next week. So be sure to turn on those notifications. Look forward to letting you guys know. Stay safe, everyone.